in the conservation field. It started off, I think, in 2016, 2017, during the year that I went for my internship, which is more or less industrial attachment, is more or less similar to internship. So during that time, I got involved with a company that is called Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Authority, Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority. Those are the sole custodians of all the wildlife in Zimbabwe. So as I was engaged with that organization, it was for 1 year. And through my engagement with that organization, I got exposed to wildlife management in Zimbabwe. And I got to then apply GIS in conservation within the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife fraternity. And as I moved on from after my year completed, I went back to finish my degree. And then I was now more equipped on how we can apply GIS and remote sensing in wildlife in conservation or in natural resources management. And then after that, from there onwards, it became easy for me since I had now the knowledge of how to use GIS and how I can apply GIS. After that, I started getting involved with several consultancies. I got involved with, I think soon after I graduated, I got involved with a company that I was working on some work here which was working on some work in Zimbabwe. They had got a contract from the World Bank, and they were working they were trying to produce a Zimbabwe water resources master plan for Zimbabwe. This was, I think, 2018 around that time. And then I got involved with this company close to a year. And then after, it was a consulting company. And then I was using GIS remote sensing to handle and look into climate change and how it will impact natural resource management into the future. And then after that, I also got involved with several other companies. Like I went back to Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife. I also got engaged with the CASA, Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area Secretariat, and I was based in Victoria Falls. And then that exposed me again to this whole wildlife, natural resources management and wildlife conservation, and how I can then bring how I can bring GIS to the interface. Because one of the key components that was critical, I think, during the process of even that is related to policy initiatives and decision making during the time that I was at Parks, was the fact that I'm not so sure if it's the same in other countries or in other areas, but say, for example, within a national park, you could be interested in, say, for example, using a piece of their land for, say, for example, tourist activity, such a way that, like, say, for example, if you go to Kruger National Park, there are other areas within Kruger National Park, like not conservancies, but tourist sites or hotels or camps that are within that area. So having that kind of setup requires you to have Parks involved, and then Parks is supposed to go there and make an ecological assessment of the work that you're doing, what you intend to do, and the intended environmental impacts within that area. So then it allowed me then to interface and bring in the environmental component, but then amplify every component. For example, look at the vegetation, the extent of damage, what is the likely damage, where are the nearest roads, the rivers and everything, and then amplify that to allow then the superiors within the Zimbabwe National Parks Management Authority to then decide on whether we would like, on how to move on, or whether they would actually release this area to this person. So now, when I went to Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, it was more or less the same, but with it CASA Secretariat, we're now looking at more of conservation initiatives and looking at lion movement and at a landscape level. How can we improve conservation in the whole Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area? And after that, I was engaged with several organizations, and then I think after Kavango Zambezi Conservation Area, I went back to the University of Zimbabwe. I was working now as a GIS and remote sensing technician. I was more now into the academic field, and then engaged in practicals and imparting knowledge to all undergraduates and scholars and stuff like that. And then during that time, and also during the time that I was at Parks, I developed the whole trio of research. Then some of the research we were fortunate for some of the research to publish it, and some of the research is still ongoing. And then that's when I took the initiative to do my postgraduate degree, which I completed this year. And I'll be graduating. I was supposed to graduate in April, but there were some delays. But now I've already started piecing up my PhD proposal, and then I'll be enrolling for my PhD this year. But overall, I can say that that's how my journey in terms of using GIS, or my journey in terms of getting involved with GIS was. And now I'm working with the African Leadership University, and I'm part of the research team under the School of Wildlife Conservation. And our main goal, or what we are known mostly, is looking at the wildlife economy and the wildlife economies for most African countries, where the goal is to publish or policy documents that are related to the wildlife economy for most African countries, because we believe that every African country has the potential to unlock the wildlife economy and benefit more, to allow community beneficiation, and also improve livelihoods within each country in Africa. So that's the whole goal. And some of the work now involves using GIS and remote sensing to amplify and improve the research outputs from the policy documents that you actually produce for each and every country. I think to date, we have produced probably more than 10 case studies for each and every country, talking about South Africa, we're talking about Rwanda, we're talking about, we're going to probably release very soon in the next coming months, we're going to release the Zambian case study, we're going to also release the Zimbabwe case study, we're looking at the Senegal case study, the Nigeria case study, looking at how we can amplify or unlock the wildlife potential in each and every one of African countries. So that is where I am currently, working with the School of Wildlife and Conservation as a researcher there. But overall, my role or my involvement with GIS started off from my undergraduate, where I got involved from the sense that every component or every one of my courses or modules that I was doing was related to GIS and Mosaic and how it can be used in environmental science. Some of my friends actually got into other fields, for example, telecommunications. But for me, because of the whole instance of having involved with Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority, it meant that I was now in the conservation field. And to date, that's where I am. So using GIS and wildlife and amplifying wildlife management. Thank you.
That's quite fascinating. I'm also very, it's interesting all the diverse issues that you got involved in, from climate change to wildlife economies, policy issues. The whole wildlife economies issue is central to the debate in African conservation at the moment. So it's very exciting that GIS is being used as a tool to give real data, because I think it's very important that if you make these decisions, that you're not basing it on just your philosophy or your thoughts.
Yes.
Because yeah, that is sort of where the controversy in African conservation is at the moment, is the whole issue of why do you conserve and how do you conserve? Should you allow something like hunting, and how does sustainable management of the resources look in different countries? And every country has got a different model, or more than one model actually. It varies quite a lot. If you look at South Africa and you look at Kenya, there's a lot of differences over the African continent. So it's exciting that we can learn from each other.
Yeah, that's very true. Thank you, Simon, for that example. That's very, very true. And there are a lot of ongoing debates in terms of conservation, and even the illegal hunting and poaching, and then even the fairly, not recent per se, but the CISO issue and the hunting of juvenile species that are not supposed to be hunted, the poaching instances and stuff like that. So it's just a myriad of issues that are ongoing, but we are trying as much as we can. We might not be able to solve each and every one of the conservation problems or the wildlife trade issues. But I mean, we only try as much as we can, and from that we move on and see how best we can address everything.
Yeah.
I think those issues, from what Kudzi was saying, the multitude of issues that have to be addressed with conservation, and often conflicting issues, this is where I think GIS is a really good tool because of its ability to bring in and integrate and visualize lots of different data. And it was interesting from what Kudzi was saying about assessment of land as well, and that ability of being able to assess lots of overlapping data is one of the key issues why GIS is such a good tool for conservation.
That's very true. And I think one of the other projects that we are working on that could be of interest, hopefully some of the documents will be published this year. It's a project that we're working at the School of Wildlife Conservation. It looks at how we can look at the opportunity cost of each land use, and then advise policymakers to say that this land use can give you this much, agriculture can give you this much, mining can give you this much, tourism can give you this much, and then we let the decision makers take the road, then decide that which land use are we going to stick to according to all of, given this is the opportunity cost of each and every land use. We actually embarked on this project because we realized that hopefully we'll be able to scale it, but we realized that this is a really pertinent issue, given that most of the times there is always that conflicting issue, especially in conflicted landscapes, where people are always talking about agriculture. Is it agriculture that we need to stick to, or should we go to wildlife? What are we supposed to do? Is it tourism? So we're now trying to bridge the gap in actually a few countries that we're working on to then try and look at how each land use, try and look at the opportunity cost of each land use, and then produce the documents, the policy briefs and everything, and then give it to the decision maker, so that if people then decide to say that we're going to go for agriculture, they should know how much they're going to lose or how much they're going to benefit from actually moving from agriculture from wildlife to agriculture, agriculture to wildlife, or to mining, or whatever it might be. And that's some of the work we're doing. And definitely GIS then becomes a handy tool to then look at the data and visualizing everything, so that you see the overlaps and everything, like what Jonathan said.
Yeah.
Mm. It would be so interesting to overlay that with data that indicate, for instance, if you have agriculture, how much of a carbon sink is that land if it's under agriculture, and if it's under conservation, how much of a carbon sink is it? Because that adds another dimension to it.
Yes,
so
that's very true. That's very true.
In the climate related world. I just want to say, Simon, welcome. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, so thank you, Johan, Kudzai, and Jonathan. And you can also see we have a number of other participants. Yeah.
We have a public holiday in South Africa, and I believe in quite a few other countries as well. So the attendance is not that much, but it is lovely to have you here. We were running this experiment to find out, will we perhaps have more students if it's a public holiday, because people are sometimes not able to attend events that they could, would want to attend because they were busy with other activities. But it seems like the public holiday spirit won the battle, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's also
but that's
holiday.
okay as well.
Yeah.
You need to take a holiday as well. It's needed. You can't only work. Jonathan, I'm going to ask you to please talk a little bit about your career path. And then also, I know that you are also involved with two NGOs, I think, that do emergency outreach work.
Yes, one of Map Action is a key one, so I can talk a little bit about that as well. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I started off in the GIS career a long time ago now. My first degree was in geography, and I graduated from that back in 1988, so well over 30 years ago. There was an opportunity at the time in England for, there was only a handful of places that did GIS type courses at that time. And I had an opportunity of joining a MSc course, a master's course at the University of Leicester. And it was only the second of the postgrad courses in GIS that was running in the whole of the UK at the time, the other one being Edinburgh University. So it was a very new field back in the sort of mid to late 1980s. So the MSc course gave a really good grounding into the theory, the mathematics, and the practical side of GIS and remote sensing, and gave the foundations for understanding some of the basic principles. And I think it was through that I really got an understanding that GIS is actually all about the data, and being able to understand data structures, data and database management and data storage was a key element of GIS that I've sort of carried through that theme throughout my career. My first opportunity as a job following that was at another academic institution in the UK, the University of Southampton, but that was with a commercial consultancy unit run by two of the geography lecturers at the university. So it was a mix of commercial work, but with more of an academic ethos behind it, of actually trialing new ideas and investigating the problem and bringing new ideas and methods to solving some of the commercial problems that we were being asked to look into. So that covered all sorts of things from coastal zone change, mapping habitats within local parks. Southampton was quite a large urban area, but within that there was lots of green parks and connected ecological corridors. So a big part of it was mapping the ecology for that. But it also included everything from running some of the undergrad courses that started to be developed, and supervising some of the PhD students using GIS as a tool for their PhD work. And that covered a whole range of interesting topics such as soil erosion, glacial meltwater, and the sort of various ecological habitat type projects. After 2.5 years there, I went to work for local government, for a local municipality, where they were promoting environmental policy. So I then started to use GIS much more in policy development and a local government, local community setting. And for that, I was involved with various things such as analysing access to open space. Again, GIS is a great tool for doing that type of access, open space, integrating population distributions and so on. But also through that got involved with more climate change, carbon reduction type of projects, which is where the data side really began to take over. So I moved away a bit from the pure GIS mapping, more into data management and data analysis, setting up systems for integrating information on various environmental factors, water use, energy use, that type of thing. As well as it being involved in a number of European based projects around the broad issues of sustainability, looking at the integration of different factors of transport use, access to transport, energy use, air pollution, those types of things. But after 12 years working on a range of projects within the local authority environment, I decided to move back into the private sector, back into consulting. And from there, I also got involved more with the renewable energy side of work. But on the ecological assessment, on the environmental impacts of development of renewable energy schemes, such as large-scale wind farms. So I was looking at habitat surveys, ornithological surveys, looking at collision risk of birds, potential collision risk of birds with wind turbines, and developed various methodologies and systems using the GIS to help with that assessment. I moved into another much larger national consultancy after a couple of years, and ended up being the key GIS lead within the UK for a large multidisciplinary consultancy. And that gave me access to, or gave me exposure to, using GIS in a vast array of projects and applications, mainly in the broad environmental sector, but broader than just ecology. So I'll be looking at contaminated land, hydrology, alternative land uses, site assessments. And these would either be for specific sites that were that a developer was wanting to put forward to develop a wind farm, or it may be an industrial process, varying sites. And the end use may not have been environmental or ecological, but my role, or the GIS role, of which I was sort of leading a team, would be to make sure that that any environmental aspects, either within the site or the impacts of what was going to be proposed on that site, were assessed in full. So although not directly relating to ecological use on the site, it was very much about checking that there was nothing of environmental sensitivity either within the site or within the influence of that site to minimize the environmental impacts that any development would have, or conversely to identify where those sensitivities were, to actually redesign or even put a halt to some of the developments if it was going to be cause too much environmental damage. So it was an interesting perspective that the developments weren't necessarily ecologically based, but it was our role from doing a thorough environmental impacts assessment to make sure that any environmental impacts were mitigated against or minimized, or ideally avoided completely. And that was very much about doing a thorough investigation of the site and its impacts. The following 6 years there, I then went on to set up on my own, doing freelance work, and then eventually set up my own GIS consultancy, of which the background working for the large multidisciplinary consultancy gave me a huge range of sort of overarching knowledge and experience in a wide range of GIS applications. And that background, that wide range of background, has certainly helped me running my own GIS consultancy, in that I've had experience for so many things that even if I don't necessarily know the details of a particular topic, I at least know where it fits in, or at least I know enough to know I don't know enough about it, which is always handy in consultancy. So through that, I've sort of been working on a huge range of projects over the last 10 years of being freelance, often working with other consultancies or other organizations that don't necessarily have that GIS skills in-house. And I often see my role as being a crucial bit of the jigsaw. Sometimes the bit of the jigsaw that they don't know is missing, but nevertheless, it's a crucial bit to get the overall picture of what somebody's trying to achieve. And that's where I've sort of see my role and have developed that as an approach to basically the marketing that I do, and my sort of sales approach is very much working alongside other people to get the end product. Johan mentioned my work with an NGO, and that's something, the freedom of working for myself gave me the time and the opportunity to work for a UK-based charity called Map Action. And the overall remit of that charity is to provide mapping and data management support to humanitarian disasters. And working with them, I've been involved with various disasters worldwide, such as the Sulawesi earthquake over in Indonesia, the Mozambique floods, which badly affected Beira, various tropical cyclones and hurricanes over in the Bahamas and the Caribbean, as well as other initiatives a little bit closer to home in Europe, such as the Balkan migrant crisis due to the Syrian conflict a few years ago. And although I've had to take a step back now for sort of personal and family reasons, the Map Action is still going strong, and they're heavily involved right at the moment in helping with the refugee and migrants from the war in Ukraine. So some of my previous co-volunteers are actually out in Poland, Belarus, and at the UN headquarters over for the UNHCR over in Geneva, doing a lot of work on collating the ever-changing data and information that's coming through in those fastly evolving situations, and being able to map and analyze that so that the organizations on the ground have current, up-to-date information about the logistics of where aid and help is needed. And it will cover everything from the numbers of refugees and migrants coming in and where they're coming in, through to where the medical facilities are and the current capacity of those hospitals and emergency medical facilities. A lot of the work is wrapped up in what we term the 3 or the 4 W's. The who, what, where, and when are the key aspects. The 3 W's, who, what, where, or the 4th, when, is a key way of using GIS for helping with the logistics of those humanitarian disasters and working with a multitude of different organisations. So I think that thanks, Johan, for putting the link up to Map Action. That's useful as well in the chat. There's a link there to the Map Action website that tells you all about the current and the past work that we've done with that.
Jonathan, can anybody participate? Is it open to
what
level of expertise? What kind of expertise do they need?
There's various levels. They do have a staff, so you can be involved as an employee of the organisation, and there's various jobs always coming up for programmers, data analysts, data visualization specialists, as well as the usual non-GIS roles that you get in a charity, the fundraisers, the admin type of things. But the bulk of the organisation is made up of the volunteers, and the volunteers are largely recruited from Europe, but they are spreading out to have various other global units. We've got a group in the Caribbean because of the amount of work that needs to be done there. So as things move forward, there's likely to be other cells of map action specialists around the globe. The key thing is the volunteer role is very demanding. So it's not something you can dip in and out of. But it is something that where you've got the skills in applied GIS, being able to use GIS under pressure for rapidly evolving situations, then those skills are needed, and those are exactly the type of volunteers that are recruited. And if you're interested, have a look at the website, and every year they do a recruitment round for volunteers to bring in a batch of volunteers, which will then be trained up to be able to help with the different operations that are needed.
Well, that's fantastic. I think it's just and I mean, it's probably not the only NGO that students can look at, but it's an opportunity for people to gain experience, is to work with NGOs who are always tight on budgets. So they appreciate volunteers, and they will definitely appreciate skilled volunteers.
Yeah, there's another organisation that has a global reach, is called the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap Network, and I'll find the link and put that in the chat as well. Okay. But that uses the OpenStreetMap source of data to actually add to that in areas of humanitarian need, to give the base information that's often needed in some of the areas which are often poorly mapped, but often suffer from humanitarian disasters.
Yeah, that's exactly as you say. Those are unfortunately the areas that really need that data, and where your humanitarian organizations are really going to be desperately needing that data to effectively deliver the services that they are trying to deliver there. So that's actually fantastic work and a fantastic space for people to get involved in. I just want to ask another question, Jonathan. So if students are entering the world in GIS, you mentioned that you're working as a consultant. In other words, you are an entrepreneur. You put quite a bit of experience behind yourself before you entered that field.
Yes, I did. And I wouldn't have had the confidence to be a broad-ranging consultant without that breadth of skills and sort of opportunities that I've been exposed to in the past. However, it's all about making the most of the opportunities that present themselves. And I think if you are going to be a broad-ranging consultant, then you need a broad range of experience to be able to do that effectively. Because as a consultant, people are paying for your expertise, knowledge, and time. But that's not to say that you can't have a lot of valuable expertise and skills in a more narrow field. and become highly knowledgeable and expert in a particular application of GIS. And if you have an opportunity to be able to work with and offer those skills to a narrower range of organizations, but that you've got skills that they want, then there's certainly opportunities there to do freelance work. It's whether you're a jack of all trades or a complete master in a few, but you either need a particular niche or a broad range of skills.
So a question related to that then from me, I'm just starting to think, if you want to specialize, one of the areas where or a skill set that I've noticed that some of your really advanced GIS consultants or users have is they also have coding capabilities. Are you a coder as well?
I have done programming in the past, and years ago I used to do quite a lot of programming behind the front end of databases, basically using things like MS Access or Excel, and doing some coding for procedures and functions that were needed, that then sat behind a front end for the database. But to be perfectly honest, I've got so behind the curve of all the current programming in Python and R and all that type of approach, that I know that's one of the things I know enough about it to know that I don't know enough about it. I know enough to know what's possible in the programming language, and I know enough to be able to be aware of the functions and the approach and how it can be applied, but I don't know enough detail to actually be able to program efficiently a piece of working code. And for the vast majority of the work I do, I'd say probably 95% of the work I do, I don't need to use coding at all. I can make the most of all the functions that are available. Sometimes there's bits of work that I think, oh, if only I could just write a bit of code like that, it would make it so much easier. And if I knew the coding, it would be an efficient way for me to do a particular task. But I'm aware that for me to do the coding, it would take so long that I may as well do it in a more longhand way through the available functions. I've done some customizing for things like using QGIS and the layout. The layouts that you can do on QGIS, being able to bring in attribute data from the underlying data tables. I've been able to do some basic formatting coding of sort of if-then conditional statements to be able to format the output sort of red, green, orange colors based on the value within certain ranges. So that level of being able to do a bit of customization to yield QGIS layouts is really useful. Most of virtually all of my work is to do with using existing functions within the GIS packages.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, it's just a good point that you made there, that, if you enter this world of IT, your education never stops. The moment you stop, you will stop using it as well.
Yes.
You will not be able to, because it changes. It's not static. It's not like you learn French or German and you'll be okay. It's a language that is constantly still evolving. And yeah, I think when you enter IT, that's just a different kind of mindset. You can't say, I've done my master's degree, now I'm, right and left, off we go. You have to keep on educating yourself all the time.
Yeah, even if it's educating yourself about who you know that can do that. Yeah. And that's where the collaborative work really comes in, is being able to know the limits of what you know, but know that it can be done if you find the right person.
Yeah.
And working in teams and collaborative work is, I think, a really useful approach. One final point I just wanted to make, again, just about the development of IT. I think throughout all of my career and currently now, there's always new technology coming on board. And it's always really useful to know what the new technology can bring. It may not be at a practical stage now, and sometimes some of the new ideas that come through, they're great in theory and as sort of IT developments. But sometimes the practical use lags a couple of years, 2 or 3 years behind the development. So it may be possible to do it, but is it actually practical in the field? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's then a perfect storm of getting all the different bits of the technology together in a way that actually, now we've got something that works and we can actually take out in the field and do. So that, yeah, it's always worthwhile watching the technology as it develops and being aware of what it can do, but don't necessarily think that that's the thing that you should be using, because it may not be practical for whatever purposes that you're needing. But give it a couple of years and it will evolve and get to be a really useful tool. And that's certainly the way QGIS has gone for me over the last 5 years. It turned to something that I was aware of, but I could use the functions of what it could do. I could do better using my knowledge of using ArcGIS. But over the last, well, certainly the last 6-7 years, it's evolved into a highly functional package that can do virtually anything that you want. And the field survey options using Q field, that's evolving as well and provides a really useful package for field survey. So it's watching where the technology goes and being aware of when it becomes a practical use for whatever you want to use it for.
That's a very good tip. Don't write any software off. It might develop.
Yeah.
Keep your eye on it. Simon, I'm going to ask you to unmute again, please. And if you can please join the conversation and tell us about your career path, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Johan. And maybe my experience will not be as rich as Jonathan's, because hearing what he's talking about is really quite interesting, and it's really good being part of the team and associating with Jonathan, and you also had Kudzai and the rest of the team. Well, for me, my journey, when I started off, I wasn't sure I was going to do GIS, because my bachelor's degree was water and environmental engineering. And GIS was only one unit out of the many units that we did in university. But then when I got my first job immediately after university, that was, well, it was not really a job, because after university, I made several applications, but could not get really a stable job. So I decided to register as an environmental impact assessment expert. And I'm glad to hear that most of us, Jonathan and Kudzai, they're already experts in environmental impact assessment. So that's where all my journey started, because I started doing consultancies in environmental impact assessments on small projects within the coast of Kenya. So I was mostly doing any construction projects at the coast of Kenya. That was what I was doing to survive. I could get maybe a project or two in a year and get my lump sum of money. That's how I survived. Then around 2012, I got into an NGO where we were doing marine conservation. So the very first time I set my hand on a GPS and they told me, track for us, show us the route that we've taken, and then give us that information. So that was a challenge for me. I think it was around 2011, towards the end of 2011. So I had to learn the hard way how to use the GPS device, collect the routes, and that intrigued me and maybe made me to get interested in GIS. So I had to learn how to operate the GPS manually, just by looking at the gadgets, playing around with the buttons while I was on the van from the coast of Kenya onto some other place. And then that's where now my interest started with GIS, because from 2011, then I got into a local NGO called Coastal and Marine Resource Development in Mombasa. That is one of the capital cities of Kenya. So in that NGO, what we are doing was mostly marine conservation and capacity building of locals, especially fishermen, on how they could conserve the marine environment and maybe increase their fish stocks. And one of the projects that we did was trying to understand how or which routes the migrant fishers were using when they're doing their fishing. And the project entailed giving them GPS devices, and then they would put them on, move with the GPS on their small ships or local boats, and then we would go weekly to download this information and then analyze how they were moving inside the sea and doing their fishing. So at that time, I was not really an expert. I was just more of a field assistant. So my work was to go to most of these landing sites, talk to the fishermen, get the GPS device, download the information within the device, and then I hand this over to my superiors. So I got interested and tried to see how can I be able now to analyze this data instead of just being a person who is just collecting the data and then analyzing it. So then my boss introduced me to some scholarships, and then I started applying for scholarships. Mostly I was applying for one that was in the ITC, a course on GIS, because when I did my research, I found out they're the ones who do the best training in GIS and remote sensing. So that is the University of Twente in the Netherlands. So I started applying for that master's course way back in 2011. For around 4 years, I could not get the scholarship. So I was still working with the zero technical expertise in GIS, but handling a lot of GIS data. So we would do a lot of capacity building of the locals along the coast on how they could set up marine protected areas. We were demarcating these areas on the sea, setting off conservation areas, drawing this on maps, doing participatory mapping with the locals, drawing the local maps with the fishermen. So that's how now I started doing capacity building and training. But at that time, I was still not really at an expert level. So my work there was just to maybe do data collection, write reports. You know, I was just watching now my superiors as they do the capacity building. So with this, and also being involved in a lot of marine development projects, from small projects to very big projects, like if you've heard of the Lamu Port of Kenya. So we did the environmental impact assessment, we did the environmental feasibility study, and then we did also the community resettlement plan for these projects. And so that is how now I got to really practice handling GIS data. Then in 2014, I managed to get a job in government. Then I moved now to Kenya Water Institute, where I'm working currently. That was in 2014. And along the lines, I was also still applying for the scholarship, but was not really getting it. So now I moved into the lecturing career in 2014. Then somehow I was still applying for the scholarship, and in 2016 it went through, and then I went to do my master's in the University of Twente, that was in the Netherlands, where now I specialize in GIS and remote sensing, but for water resources and environmental management. So I was in the Netherlands for 18 months, learning all about GIS and how we can use it for water resource management. That is from calculating the water balance, doing a lot of modeling. I specialized in surface water. So what I do is surface water modeling, using hydrological models to model the catchment areas, to model the different scenarios, maybe of flooding, is it precipitation, trying to quantify the water balance, and just to understand how we can be able to manage water resources and the environment. So my project, what I did, like some of the slides that I showed in my presentation were actually from my research, where I was doing flood simulation for a local river. And we were doing this to try to analyze what would be the extent of flooding by simulating this using a model called the OpenLSM. It's actually a free, it's an open source software, so you can always get into it and try to exploit. The only catch would be you need to know some, not really need to know some, but you need to learn a bit of coding because it is tied to Python programming. Back in my bachelor's, if you talked to me about coding and programming, it really used to scare me, but somehow because of the nature of work that you're doing, then you really had to learn it and try to understand and how you can be able to apply it on GIS. So when I got back, I still came back to my employer, that is Kenya Water Institute, where I am up to now, and we've been doing a lot of capacity building of both students and especially people in the water sector. We try to train them on how they can integrate GIS in water management. And in 2020, we had a very big symposium, and it was actually to a global scale because we had a lot of audience, both locally and online. GIS symposium in 2020 organized by Kenya Water Institute, and it was quite a success. It was good because being part of the committee that formed and formulated this symposium also gave me a lot of experience on that. And currently we are also organizing another symposium on 28th on non-revenue water management and how you can apply GIS in managing non-revenue water so that water companies can actually increase their revenue using GIS by managing this non-revenue water. So apart from working for government, I also do a lot of consultancies, and most of the skills that I've gained is actually from consulting work. So since I got back from the Netherlands, and I would like to just maybe emphasize what Jonathan was saying in his talk. In the consultancy world, it is all to do with collaboration and working with different people, different organizations, because I've worked with almost more than 10 to 20 organizations which I work with. So on your own, you cannot do much when you're talking of making an impact on GIS. But as a consultant, just like Jonathan said, you have to work with a lot of organizations. So like myself, I work with more than 10 to 20 organizations where I do a lot of consultancy with them, training on applications of GIS in different fields. And this has really helped me because if I try to count the number of people whom I've trained on GIS, it's actually on an international scale because I've trained people from Japan online, Guyana, Nigeria. I think I've never trained anyone from South Africa, so maybe soon I'll get somebody from South Africa.
Doing it.
Yeah. So right now it's a holiday today, like Johan said, but I was actually working because I'm doing some consultancy work, training somebody from GIZ from Somalia here in Nairobi. So we are training him on how he can use GIS for monitoring and evaluation. So what we normally do in this, we do some tailor-made GIS training programs. And this is normally tailored to different organizational needs. And you will see that in Kenya, we have a lot of consultancy agencies doing a lot of GIS, but you'll find that the people who will be training you are just the same people. So it's like a network. You know, the moment you get into the GIS world, it's like a very small network because we have so many people, but a few of them are the experts like Jonathan with his wealth of knowledge in GIS. So you'll always see that these are the people whom you'll always be counting on. And you don't really have to be an expert in all the fields. And just like he said, you need to know where your limit is and whom you can reach out to so that you can work and collaborate on this. So currently, what I do mostly is capacity building on GIS and remote sensing and how you can integrate it on different fields. But as I said, my specialization is in water resource management and environment. But that does not stop there. Even if you come and you're doing monitoring and evaluation, mining, public health, we'll always look for a way of customizing and tailor this to suit you. So in a nutshell, that was like my journey into the GIS world. I got into it out of necessity because I went into the job. I was given a GPS device and somehow it intrigued me. And then I started off from there. I started applying for the scholarships so that I could learn how to do it. Because at that time, when I was trying to look for courses within Kenya, they were quite expensive and I could not afford to pay for the cost. And that is why it is quite good what ShareScreen is doing, because GIS courses are quite expensive. So what ShareScreen is doing by giving you an opportunity, giving the participants an opportunity to get exposed to these GIS skills at no charge. All the participants who have been here, they should not take it for granted, because if you come to us as consultants, trust me, our charges would be very high and you'll not be able to pay it. So we should not really take it for granted what ShareScreen is doing, but we should really gain from it and try to take advantage of that and gain as much as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. From my side, to all the presenters, thank you very much for sharing your time and your expertise. Your time is indeed your money. So you're giving actually your money away for free. Yes. So thank you very much. I must say, in the conservation community in general, it is amazing how people are open and willing to share their expertise and their knowledge. So that's fantastic. I'd just also like to say welcome to the new people in the room. As Jonathan mentioned, it is very good to know when you don't have expertise in an area where I do not have any expertise is freshwater fish parasitology. But Prof. Wilmien Lees-Powell, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing her surname correctly here, so I ask forgiveness for that. But she is an absolute expert in the field of freshwater fish parasitology from the University of Limpopo. Welcome. We are honored to have an expert in a completely different field in the room, and I'm sure that you are also using GIS in your work. I would just like to, Simon, how long did you apply to receive a scholarship? Because I see a lot of the students in the chat, they are mentioning that they are suffering a bit at the moment. And it seems to me that one skill set, if you want to call it that, that should be tenacity.
Yeah, actually, you should not give up, because, you know, the number of slots are limited and everybody is almost as qualified or even better qualified than you. I actually applied from 2011 and I was applying it annually and I managed to get it in 2016.
That's a long time.
Actually, I applied it 4 times. So in 2013, I think I got a partial scholarship from the Erasmus Mundus, but I could not be able to raise, I think they almost wanted me to raise like 28,000 euros, which is quite a lot of money. So I could not raise the other half to get that. But then what I did in 2015, because I knew the course I was applying for, so I applied for one of the units, one of the modules within that master's course. And then I paid this using my own money and then did the course online. I'm not sure if this helped me out in getting the scholarship, but I actually saved a little bit of money, enrolled for one module, which lasted 6 weeks or 3 weeks, I think. And then I paid for this using my own money. So somehow I got the student number and then I was really admitted. So then after completing that course successfully, then now I applied for the scholarship. And so sometimes it's a mixture of luck. Sometimes it is gambling. Sometimes your grades get you there. So there's no really straight way of saying if you apply it this way, you'll get it. But the thing is, you should keep on applying. Don't give up. You just keep on doing it until you eventually get it.
So
the passion should drive
just a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then just keep on pushing.
Keep on pushing and have the passion and do as much as you can on your side. Build your skills, because most of the time they'll also ask you for experience. Yes. So also the organization you are tied to is key. Like I think one of the things which was setting me not to get it was I was involved in a small local based NGO. So, you know, most of these donors, they think the moment you are working in an NGO, then they can fund your studies. So they do not really want to fund you. Mm-hmm. But if you're working for government or learning institutions, then it's much easier for you to get a funding, because they assume you are going to going to give back to the community. You know, they assume if you're working for government, you are working for the people. So sometimes also being affiliated to learning institutions and government bodies also gives you an upper hand. But that is not to say that if you're working for an NGO, you cannot get the funding. You can, as much as, so get good grades, have the passion, and you keep on trying it until you get it.
Yep, don't give up.
Yeah, don't give up.
I would like to ask Simon, starting with you, if you would enter your right now, where is the sort of what is the hot topics in GIS that students can absolutely focus on? Is there a particular area that where expertise are needed in the conservation field, where there's a gap? I don't want to say in the market, because it shouldn't all be about money, but if you want to make a contribution and you feel that GIS is where your talents and your capabilities is, where should you lean into? Yeah,
so like, I don't know about other countries, but like here in Kenya, if you have knowledge of GIS and how you can apply it in tackling smart agriculture, smart climate, where you are linking climate change and smart agriculture, then you actually, at this time and era, you are really, really set aside. Because I didn't mention this, but also one of the projects that we are working with at Kenya Water Institute and in Kenya as a whole is you are trying to tackle the issue of food shortage, hunger, and food insecurity. So, and if you look at this, then you see climate change is really playing a big part in this. And the best way to solve this and how we can tackle it, especially in Africa, because of over-reliance on rain-fed agriculture, is in how we can understand how we can do smart agriculture in the face of climate change and droughts. And one of the tools that you can use to understand this then is GIS and remote sensing. So that is one of the really hot topics right now. If you are able to show expertise in this, in the sense of GIS and remote sensing applications to climate change and smart agriculture, then that is really, really effective, because somehow then conservation comes in, because the issue of droughts come in, the issue of managing the water resources come in, the issue of utilizing the water resources effectively for irrigation then comes in, and then conservation also comes in.
Thank you, Simon. Jonathan, I'm going to ask you to unmute and ask you the same question. Is there any particular area from where you are sitting in the UK that you are observing where we are lacking in skills, or where students can pay close attention to, or perhaps even, you know, if you have a GIS skill set, what other skill set can you build alongside it? Or should you perhaps have a formal qualification even in that particular skill set to maximize your GIS capabilities?
I think it's similar to Simon's response, really, but from a slightly different angle. I think certainly there's a lot of dynamic landscape change going on, not only with climate change, but also with developments in all over the world of land being taken for commercial development and being taken out of agriculture, and the way that land is changing either through drought or erosion or sea level rise. That a key aspect is about being able to monitor and collect that data. And I certainly from the UK side, there's a lot of developments in UAV drone technology, and being able to use the drones for doing rapid assessments and rapid data capture over smaller areas, but nevertheless over areas that are meaningful for a community, for a farmer, for agricultural use. So I think being able to understand the technology of being able to get drone imagery, whether it's a standard sort of aerial imagery or multispectral imagery, thermal imagery, or sort of, infrared multi-waveband imagery for being able to do things like vegetation analysis is a really useful and valuable skill to have. It's one thing being able to fly a drone and capture imagery from above. It's something else to be able to use that imagery within a GIS that's actually accurately positioned, being able to monitor changes in the landscape. So understanding of those techniques and the technology is useful. And coupled with that, coming at it again from a slightly different angle, use of crowdsourcing and community data collection, being able to get the communities involved in actually collecting the data about the community. It may be a farming collective, it may be a village wanting to identify areas that matter to them around where they live. But being able to use mobile survey tools, either using GPS devices or just applications on your mobile phone, to be able to collect data by the ordinary person out there living in the areas that you want to collect data from. Being able to integrate that with your drone imagery, as well as your other more wider area satellite remote sensing data sets. I think that combination of real, timely, near real-time data collection is a key aspect, certainly as we're moving into highly dynamic landscapes and a land use change.
New technology coming into the area, that's always very interesting. Kutsai, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you, Johan. Like what Jonathan and Simon have mentioned just now, I agree with what you had said. And I also want to emphasize on the dynamism that is related to GIS. At one point, okay, at one instance, something could be trending, and GIS, you could actually use GIS within that specific field. And then the next thing is, there's always a next thing. So like, I always like to say or rephrase it this way, like GIS and remote sensing are more or less a cherry on top to everything that you do. So it's very broad and it can be integrated in any field. Jonathan was talking about banking and finance in the chat and everything like that. It is that broad. And the one thing that in terms of key skills, like what Simon has said, there are always key skills that are always important. And I think Jonathan even mentioned them. I think in terms of what is more important, I think for me, what I feel it's not really about where you can apply it, but there are key skills that you're supposed to have when you want to continuously be relevant within the field. Like what Simon said, being able to then use drone LiDAR, and then also being able to do a little bit of programming, like what Simon said. If you are able to have those to be a good programmer and be able to use imagery, drone imagery, and also drone imagery and drones, and then being able to use maybe synthetic aperture radar, SAR, or active sensors, I think you are more relevant than any person who just does GIS. I think those skills for me, I think they fit in any field, and it becomes easy for you to hop on the next trend that comes your way. So I feel like it's more about the skill rather than the trend, because like what Simon was saying, it could be smart agriculture now, but in a week or 2 weeks or months down the line, it could be, say for example, water financing, and it could be something related, not related to agriculture, it could be something else. And if you do have those skills, it means that it becomes cross-cutting and you're able to fit smoothly into the next field. And like even I think what Jonathan said in his, when he was talking earlier on, was saying that sometimes it's not about the field. Sometimes you know nothing about the field, but because you have the skill, you know that it fits somewhere, and then you are able to actually present it and make people believe and actually see the worth of the work that you're coming through with. Yes.
Fantastic. So I just want to mention this afternoon, we are a small number of people due to the public holiday in several countries. But thank you to everybody that tuned in. It's really great to have you here. For ShareScreen Africa, it is about also sharing knowledge on a continental level and exchanging knowledge. So it's fantastic this afternoon. I've seen we have people in from Kenya. We have people in from Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Zimbabwe, the UK. So a whole lot of international countries that are represented here, and that's fantastic. And if any one of you would like to get in touch with another person in this group, please contact us. And if you would like to have further GIS events related to your field of study, please get in touch with us. We will link you with the relevant experts, and it doesn't have to be a whole series of events. It can be one event where an expert talks to your university or your institution. So it would be, we look forward to hearing from you and see if we can in the future facilitate some more events for you. I see there is a hand up from Abdul. Abdul, please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank the organizers for this event, and also to ask if we can have it more, because with this time frame that has given, it's not enough. We'll need more time, yeah, in order for one to get yourself conversant with the GIS approaches or how it works. So that's something that I want to appeal to management. Thank you so much.
Abdul, thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. What I will also do is the preceding sessions to this one will be available on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. So that's free of charge. You can access it, you can share it. In fact, please share it with as many people as possible. Whatever ShareScreen Africa does is free of charge. So we make these resources available with the collaboration of the presenters who are sharing their knowledge and expertise. So yes, we will definitely look at doing follow-up events and building on this, but please start with the first session. If you go to sharescreenafrica.org, you can go to the presentations and you will find the previous videos there. And you can also access the online course that was sponsored by the South African Environmental Observation Network. If you work through that course, you will really have a very, very good grip on the basics of GIS. And watch the first video that was presented by Rion Laram. He was incidentally also, I think he's got a master's degree in conservation, but GIS, he was completely self-taught, and now he's a lecturer in GIS. So you can grow your GIS skills while from different directions. It can come in a practical sense, or it can come through the academic channel. So please have a look on our YouTube channel for the previous sessions, and then in the future we will build on this as well. I see Augustine is asking, I would like to be invited for any other trainings now and in the future. Thanks for the great impact today. Thank you to our presenters for that. Then there's another comment here. I need in area of biodiversity conservation. I need a mentor in area of biodiversity conservation and waste management using GIS. That's, I'm not sure if the person is still in the room at the moment. I think actually, apologizing if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, Abdgufar, I think he's no longer in the room at the moment. I would have liked to ask, you know, where he is situated and how we could perhaps link him up. I think he might have been from Nigeria. So
I just asked him to unmute, Johan.
Is he still in? Okay.
Ademola. Abdgufar Ademola.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you.
Hi, yes. So tell us, where are you situated?
I am in Nigeria, from Nigeria, Enugu State in Nigeria.
Okay. We are in contact with Professor Idem Eniyang there, and what I can do in Nigeria, and I can ask him if he could perhaps assist us with somebody that could enter into a mentoring role with you.
Okay.
But we will have your email details, and we will be in touch with you. And also we will alert you of any further training events that ShareScreen Africa facilitates.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I see there are more requests for mentorship, renewable energy, agroecology. I know in the very first session, a WhatsApp group was started. And unfortunately, that was done separately from us. So if anybody is in here that are in that WhatsApp group, perhaps you can incorporate those people into that group as well. At this stage, you know, ShareScreen Africa is a very small team. At this stage, we do not have the capacity to offer personal mentoring ourselves. But we would love to bring you in touch with people that can assist you. If I say we are a small team, I mean like that kind of small.
I don't know if this would help, but there is this initiative called EO Africa, where they're giving a lot of training, and most of it is free. You just need to keep on checking the website. So it is organized by, I think, GMS Africa, and then you have Copernicus and all that. So maybe I'll just share the link on the chat window. And
Yeah, you're welcome. Please do. Please do. The more we can share our resources, the better.
Yeah, so I've just shared the link. So it's quite good because they have a lot of trainings, which, so you keep on checking the website, you can always enroll for some of those courses are there. They're also free, and they also have webinars where you can learn a lot of new skills, and it's specifically tailored for people from Africa. So it's quite a good initiative for us.
But once again, also, you know, if you're looking for mentorship in GIS, one way to find that mentorship is to join something like an NGO, like Map Action, where you are jointly going to be working on somebody, and there will be a more experienced person in that project than you. And that person will become your mentor almost by default, because you will be the junior partner in the team. So my suggestion also, and that's with a lot of cases, is that you join perhaps an NGO, or do some work for free somewhere where you can just gain the experience. That is the path that all of us start out with, especially when you are in any technology related field. Your employers will look at what projects you have done and what experience you have. An academic qualification is good, but it's not everything. Experience counts a lot when it comes to technology. People want to see that you can actually do it. And you might even find yourself in a position where you have an advantage above the person who's got more academic qualifications when it comes to technology.
If I can just sort of follow on from that as well, I've just put a link in the chat to something I've just found from the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, and they've got an initiative for supplying grants to communities for open mapping. And it's a great way of getting involved with an organization that can, well, there'll be people there that are more experienced and can help you learn GIS on a practical level, and being able to outreach into the communities as well. So this is a sort of a shout out for looking into and joining up with the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, either as part of a community and a group, or actually just being able to join in online as well. So I'd definitely have a look at that.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's a fantastic opportunity. Everybody, we've been busy for an hour and a half now. If there are no particular further questions, I am going to thank our presenters and end the session for this afternoon. And just once again mention that these resources are recorded. They are available on our website, sharescreenafrica.org. They are also available on our YouTube channel. You can access it there anytime, and you're welcome to share it. Can we have a WhatsApp group created? Yes, you are most welcome. I'm just going to reiterate what Holly said the previous time is, please start it, but I'm going to request that you start it among each other, because at this stage we are, you know, as I said, we are a very small team. We started this thing. If you want to go with a WhatsApp group, please share the telephone numbers in the chat right now. We just don't have the capacity to administer that WhatsApp group at this stage. So, but you're absolutely, I see there are some numbers going in there. So anybody else who are willing to join or mentor or be part of it, please go for it. You are most welcome to, if you have requests for similar Share Screen Africa events in any conservation related skill set, to contact us at info@sharescreenafrica.org or admin@sharescreenafrica.org. I see we have a few numbers that went in there at the moment. So thanks for that. I'm really glad that you guys are going for it and that you're helping each other, that you're taking each other forward. Margaret, also welcome. I see you turned your video on. Thanks for joining the session. I think we are about to end at the moment. Any other questions, any other way that we can assist? I just want to mention this week, Wednesday, if you go to our website, you can register for it. There's a session by Prof. Peter Johnson from UCT on climate change in Africa, the science and the impact. If you want to bring yourself up to date with the latest scientific data and interpretation of that data for the African continent, please attend that session. He's an real expert in his field, and we will follow that up in May with Prof. Kevin Anderson on that will talk to us about COP and climate change. Once again, everybody, thank you very much. If it's okay, I'm going to end the session. All the presenters, thank you very, very much for your time and your expertise. We really appreciate it.